Pop Robson, the man they rarely mention, but could never truly replace. He scored more than most who wore the national shirt, played longer than many who made the headlines, carried clubs on his back, season after season, without ever asking for applause. 674 appearances, 265 goals. But when the names of legends are passed around, his is barely whispered. He was never the favorite, never the headline, never the chosen one. But when Newcastle needed goals, he delivered. When West Ham needed a leader, he stepped up. When Sunderland was slipping into darkness, he pulled them back, alone. They called him Pop, and when everything was on the line, he answered. So why the silence? This isn't about fame. This is about a man who gave everything and asked for nothing. A man who stayed quiet, even when they turned away. Subscribe now, because today we speak the name they left in the shadows. Brian Stanley Robson was born on 11th November 1945 in the heart of Sunderland, County Durham, a place built on coal, sweat, and the silence of men who worked with their hands. No luxury, no promises, just grit, wind, and the rhythm of survival. He wasn't the son of a football man. He wasn't born into any academy, but from the first time he kicked a ball on the cracked streets of Clara Vale, something was different. He didn't chase the ball. The ball seemed to follow him. It wasn't long before the lads gave him a name. Not Robson, not Brian. They called him Pop. Some say it came from a game. Others say it was just the sound of the ball leaving his foot. Short, sharp, final. The name stuck. Not because he wanted it, but because he earned it. He played for Clara Vale, a local side with more mud than glory. The kind of place where boots came secondhand and dreams were measured in goals, not contracts. But the goals came, and word spread. By the time he was 17, Newcastle United came knocking. No agents, no headlines, no promises, just a quiet handshake and a chance to show the Northeast what silence could do. He crossed the Tyne with no crowd behind him, but something in him knew he wasn't crossing over. He was beginning. He made his senior debut for Newcastle United in 1962, a quiet lad from Sunderland crossing the Tyne with nothing but a pair of boots and instinct in his veins. He didn't shout, he didn't showboat, he scored. With Wyn Davies beside him, he formed a front line that bullied defenders and found space where none existed. Pop played like he was always 2 touches ahead, not faster, just smarter. He made finishing look inevitable. In 1964-65, he helped Newcastle climb out of the 2nd division. By the end of the decade, he was their top scorer, and a name whispered with respect across terraces and backrooms. Then came 1969, the night Newcastle lifted the Intercities Fairs Cup, their first taste of Europe. Pop was there, young, relentless, undeniable, but even then, the silence was waiting. After 9 years, over 80 league goals and a European medal, Pop asked for one gesture, a testimonial. Recognition, one night, a thank you. The board said no. Lord Westwood, cold and direct, put up or shut up. Pop didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just walked. Quietly, finally. And Newcastle let one of their finest forwards leave, with no send-off, no farewell. Just the sound of boots walking away. In 1971, Pop Robson arrived at West Ham United. The club paid a record fee, £120,000, to bring him from Newcastle. Not because he was a name, but because he was a guarantee. He scored on his debut. Of course he did. It was never about the occasion. It was always about the net. At Upton Park, Pop found rhythm. For 3 seasons, he led the line with quiet fire. 1972-73, 28 goals in the first division. Top scorer in the country. Golden boot in his hands. Hammer of the year on his name. No tricks. No interviews. Just goal after goal. For a team that asked him to deliver, and a crowd that began to understand what greatness looked like when it didn't need the spotlight. But even as he lit up the league, England stayed silent. No call-up, not once, not even a chance. Pop once said it plainly. I played against some England regulars and outscored most of them. Managers have favorites. And that was that. The goals continued. But recognition never followed. He became West Ham's sharpest blade. And still, never wore the England badge. He didn't complain. He didn't chase headlines. But the silence grew heavier with every match he dominated. Pop was proving himself every week. But they had already made up their minds. In 1974, Pop Robson went back to where it all began, Sunderland, not just his hometown, but the place that had shaped his silence. He returned not as a boy with boots, but as one of the league's top scorers. Golden Boot winner, West Ham's finest, still overlooked, still unsatisfied. He didn't come home for applause, he came to give. And he gave everything. In his first spell, he led Sunderland's line with sharpness and hunger. Goals came quickly. The crowd responded. Promotion followed, but again, Pop moved on. And again, he came back. 3 separate times, Sunderland called. 3 times he returned. No conditions, no complaints. He was never chasing fame, he was chasing service. Then came May 1984. Pop was 38 years old, past the age when most strikers fade. But Sunderland were on the edge. 1 game from relegation. No one expected him to start. But when they needed him most, they turned once more to the man who never asked questions. Pop scored. 1 goal. The one that kept Sunderland alive. The oldest scorer in their history. And the most loyal. The crowd rose. His teammates embraced him. And once again, there was no interview. No grand celebration. Just Pop. Walking off the pitch like he always had. Job done. Head down. Nothing asked in return. After the roar of West Ham, after the loyalty of Sunderland, Pop Robson stepped into the shadows of football's edge. In 1981, he joined Carlisle United, not as a marquee striker, but as a player coach, a mentor, a guide, a man who had nothing left to prove, but still kept showing up. He was still scoring, still reading the game like a master chess player 2 moves ahead of the pitch. Then came a surprise, a brief return to the spotlight. Chelsea called in 1982. At 36, with most players long retired, Pop wore the blue. 15 appearances, 3 goals, then back to Carlisle again, and finally to Gateshead, non-league, untelevised, unnoticed. 1985-86. Pop Robson, over 2 decades in the game, still scoring. 1 goal in 3 matches at the very end. Not for the records, just because that's who he was. No testimonial, no farewell match. The boots came off quietly, just as they'd been laced up at Clara Vale all those years ago. When his final goal was scored, no crowd knew it was the last, but it was. And Pop Robson walked away with more goals than most, and far less noise than he ever deserved. He had played in 4 decades. He had scored in every shirt they gave him. Now, off the pitch, he offered something different. Wisdom. Pop Robson stepped into the world of coaching like he played, quietly, consistently, and with purpose. He worked with Hartlepool United, shared his touch at Leeds, guided youth at Manchester United, and returned once more to Sunderland, this time not to save the team with a goal, but to steady it with experience. They gave him the title of assistant manager. He didn't demand it. They just knew he was right for it. Then came 1984. Just months after scoring the goal that saved Sunderland from relegation, they let him go. No press conference, no public reason, just a new manager and an old servant discarded. Pop said it simply, "I was told I'd be staying. Then I wasn't. I'd uprooted my family again, and suddenly, we were out." But still, he didn't speak in anger. He didn't look back. He returned again years later, this time as chief scout in 2011, searching for talent in others, the same way no one had truly searched for it in him. And in 2013, just like before, a club restructure came. And once again, Pop was let go. He gave his whole life to the game. Over 20 years on the pitch, hundreds of goals, service in every shirt they gave him. And yet, when you look for his name in the halls built for legends, it's not there. Pop did wear an England shirt, but only at U23 level. He outscored England's regulars, won the Golden Boot, led the line at the highest level, but was never called. And then he moved on, like always. But Pop wasn't just numbers, he was a father. A husband, married to Maureen Heppel, herself an England table tennis international. They raised a family in the Northeast. 6 grandchildren now carry his name, even if the sport barely remembers it. As of today, Pop Robson is 79 years old, still with us, still living quietly, still unrewarded. No interviews, no ceremonies, just peace. He supported local charities, appeared now and then for club dinners, and carried himself the same way he played, with silence, loyalty, and nothing left to prove. But football forgot, and the silence never broke. He crossed the north and south of English football, never asking for attention, but always delivering when it mattered. 674 matches, 265 goals, and silence. When they left him out, he stayed quiet. When they let him go, he walked. And when they needed saving, he came back, again and again. He didn't chase legacy, he became it. One goal at a time, one season at a time, one unspoken sacrifice at a time. And even when football moved on, he never looked back with bitterness, only dignity. They buried him in the back rows of memory, overlooked him completely. Even though he gave more than most ever could, he deserved more. But he never needed more. So now, we say the name they chose to forget, Pop Robson. And we say it with weight, with respect, with the voice he never used for himself. If you believe some players were worth more than the silence they were given, subscribe. Because remembering them is the least we can do.